So thank you all for joining us this evening. You were brought into the session with your microphone and video off. If you have questions, please put them in the chat. Asaf will collect them and address them to Ken after the presentation. We really welcome your questions. That they can be very entertaining and informative because people ask questions that we have not thought of. I'm Jennifer Dye. I'm a librarian at Detroit Public Library. We've had astronomy programs for several years, thanks in part to Ken and other people in the Warren Astronomical Society and other local astronomy groups. We've been online since, I guess it was early 2021. And over the last several months, actually over a year now, we worked with Megan McCullen, who's the director of the Wayne State University Planetarium. She's been a great help on the Zoom programs, and she's been a great link to the community of Wayne State University faculty and alumni. She unfortunately is away this week, which is why we've asked Asaf to step in and take the questions. We do not have next month's program set yet. I will be working on getting that in the next couple of days. If you want to be notified, you're welcome to get in touch with me at my email address, jdye@detroitpubliclibrary.org, which I hope I typed correctly. So now I will introduce our tonight's speaker, Ken Bertin. He has been sharing his love of astronomy since he was in grade school. And tonight he's going to show us how an eclipse happens. And this will help us all in thinking about the total solar eclipse coming in 2024. And it will be visible as a partial eclipse in Michigan next year. Ken, thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. I'm going to enjoy doing this as much as hopefully you enjoy me doing it. And I'm going to now share my screen, and I'm going to talk to you about eclipses and actually what an eclipse is relative to, well, it's called, let's do this right now. Hold on a second. That's where we want to be, and we're going to share it. And why is it not doing that? It's not doing it. Why is it not?
You tested it before, it worked.
Worked great before. Okay, let's try this again here. I'm sorry about this, but it's something, the computers, they do these things to you all the time. Let's start it here. And we're going to share. Let's just make sure it does it. That should be it. And let's share the screen. It's not letting me share the screen.
We tested that. It worked.
It certainly did. Let's go. And that's what I want. And I want to share.
Let me see whether the security is now not letting you do that. No, you're still a co-host.
Okay, is it on the screen yet?
Yes.
Okay, there it is. We're on our way. Okay, this is the great American eclipses keep coming at us. This presentation will explain the nature of eclipses, their history, and their fascination. Many of the photos are by Fred Espenak, who is known as Mr. Eclipse, who worked for NASA for a number of years. I have seen 13 total solar eclipses myself. He has seen over 30, and I have seen 4 annular eclipses and a whole bunch of partials and such. I'm called an eclipse chaser, which is a little bit of a nutcase that runs all over the world to see these things. Nice feature about it, the eclipse only takes 1 day, so you get to see all parts of the world in the process. This is me when I was 15 years old, and showing that young guy right over there who's now in his 60s about astronomy. It was a little Tasco 60 millimeter telescope, very nice little refractor. I had at the same time an 8-inch reflector, but I couldn't take it to camp with me. So that was what that was all about. This is 1961. I am now 76 years old. I've been teaching people about the sun and astronomy since nearly 10 years before this photo was taken. I enjoy telling people about my passion. It is not simply a hobby as much as they enjoy hearing about it. Before I get started, I wanted to explain the word syzygy, which you saw in the beginning. Syzygy is when three objects line up in space. The word comes from the Greek word, which meant when one lined up with a pair of yoked oxen. How this word turned into the reference of things that happen in space is probably only known to the ancients. However, pictured here are several types of syzygies. The first photo is the moon moving in front of an apparent smaller object. In the case of this is, of course, Saturn. This is called an occultation. It occurs when an apparent larger object moves in front of an apparent smaller object. As a matter of fact, very recently, the moon occulted Mars. I don't know whether anybody had a chance to see it. They certainly didn't see it here because the clouds occulted the moon, so we didn't get to see it. The next photo is of the moon moving in front of a star. And in the case of this one, it's the star Aldebaran, which is the eye of Taurus the bull. The following photo is of course, the moon moving in front of the sun, completely covering the surface or photosphere in a total eclipse. But this is known as an annular eclipse, which let me see if I can get to that. Yeah, this is an annular eclipse where the moon is too far away from the Earth to totally cover the sun, and annular meaning annulus or ring. We will discuss this eclipse in a moment. The following photo is of a total lunar eclipse. This is when the sun, when the moon moves the Earth moves between the Earth and the Earth moves between the moon and the sun, and that reflection, that red, or sometimes called the blood moon, is a result of something we'll discuss in a couple of minutes. That's let me see if I can get rid of this thing here. I can't. Yeah, there we go. That's what I wanted. Good enough. All right, that works. Okay. Going on from here, this is what is known as a transit. This is a picture of the planet Venus passing in front of the sun, and I have gone in 2004 and 2012. I went to see those, the first one in Greece and the second one in Arizona. And all of you can just sit back and relax and wait for the next one, which is in 2117. It's a 76-year cycle, and then 8 years, and then another 76 years. So if you didn't see this one, enjoy the picture, as they say. Moving along, that's the planet Mercury in front of the sun. And you can see that's again a transit. Now, Mercury, of course, is much smaller and farther away than Venus is. And you'll get to see those once every about 6 years. And that's kind of cool to see. Not as neat as Venus, but neat to see anyway. And here is a wonderful picture of the planet Jupiter. And it's four major moons, the Galilean moons, crossing across the planet and throwing their shadow on it as well. And you can see these are the Galilean moons, Ganymede, Europa, and are there. And then there's Callisto and also Io, which would at some point in time do it as well. So if you get a chance to find out when that happens and get to a telescope, it's really worth it to see. Now let us discuss the types of eclipses. The first type of eclipse is the lunar eclipse. There are two types of lunar eclipses. The first is known as a total lunar eclipse. This occurs when the moon goes into the shadow of the Earth, and it turns the color red, sometimes called the blood moon. The phenomenon is caused by the sun's light passing entirely through the Earth's atmosphere. You can see the effect every morning and every evening, whereas you can see this is the breakdown of the light that hits us from the sun. And when you see a rainbow, you see the red on the outside because those are the longest rays, and you can see the purple or indigo and blue at the bottom, which are the shorter rays. And what happens, the reason the sky is blue is because the blue rays get scattered first, and that's why you get it. It doesn't have anything to do with the ocean. It has to do with the sky. Now, when the moon or the sun moves toward the horizon, it appears to turn redder. And the reason is because straight up above you, there's 90 miles of atmosphere, and that obviously at the surface, you're looking through the side of the atmosphere, which is about 1,500 miles long. So the shorter waves get more scattered, and what you end up with is orange and red. And by the way, the reason they look a little bigger when they're there is an optical illusion. When you're at the middle of the sky, there's nothing to compare it to, but when it's at the surface, you can see the trees and houses and such, so it looks a lot larger. When either of these objects are overhead, again, it's only 90 miles for the light to reach your eyes. Look at the rainbow, as we say here, and you can see the inside is blue and the outside is red. And that has to do with the length of the waves itself. The sun's light has to convert all the way through the Earth's atmosphere. All right, and you can see the lunar eclipse there as well. You can see that the sun's light now, of course, red is the only one that reaches it, as I said. The second type of lunar eclipse is the penumbral eclipse. The umbra is the main eclipse where all the light goes through, and then that light that scatters out on the sides is called the penumbra, and we have them relatively often, not as often as everybody would like to see it, but it happens pretty often. And the sun and the moon are not perfectly aligned. The moon misses the Earth's umbra and travels through the fainter penumbra. About 1 of 3 of all lunar eclipses are penumbral. They are, however, easy to miss because when they happen, the eclipsed moon tends to look very similar to a full moon. In fact, it is virtually impossible to observe the start and end of a penumbral lunar eclipse, even with telescopes. The penumbral eclipses that involve the darker central portion of the Earth's penumbral shadow, normally visible to the naked eye. Let me go back there for a minute. I made a mistake here. I hit the button too soon. Let me get back here. Okay, let's move into there. And as I said, I'm just going to go through this real quickly because somehow I hit the wrong button, and that happens with computers. Again, this is your penumbral eclipse. All right. Here's an interesting side note. It was during a lunar eclipse that Aristotle determined that the Earth was a sphere, believe it or not. And in 342 BCE, he publishes the finding in the publication Caelo. It's Caelo. No doubt his work is probably the document that shut down European scientific study of consequence until the 1500s, actually. That's a little joke, I'm sorry. All right, so the first type of solar eclipse is known as a partial solar eclipse. Sometimes the moon is not in perfect alignment, with the sun, enough to either cover the photosphere nor fall inside the sun's diameter. And again, this is something you can never look at because every point on the sun's surface is as bright as the entire sun. So you would go blind if you were to do that. Also, if the observer is outside the path of totality, one will observe a partial eclipse, and there it is. The second type of solar eclipse is an annular eclipse, which we talked about briefly before. When the moon is farther than 235,000 miles from us, and it is on the node of the plane of the Earth's orbit, it is not large enough to totally block our view of the sun's photosphere and appears to go inside the body of the sun. This is not a naked eye event, and one should utilize solar glasses to observe it. The photosphere is in fact as bright at any one point, as I said, as it is on the whole surface. Should you observe any partial phase of a solar eclipse without protection for your eyes, you will burn a hole in your retina. Again, the total solar eclipse is a naked eye event since the corona is no brighter than a full moon. Should you decide to watch totality with solar glasses, you will miss the event, obviously, during totality. The star of all eclipses is the total solar eclipse. When the moon is closer to us than 235,000 miles, and it is on the node of the plane of the Earth's orbit, is large enough to totally block our view of the sun's photosphere. The moon moves between the Earth and the sun, as illustrated here. This phenomena is joined by us because the sun is 400,000 times the size of the moon and 400,000 times farther away. They are virtually the same apparent size. The shadow moves across the Earth as illustrated here, and you can watch this. You see the shadow going across. Now we start to see the corona. Let me do this real quickly here. We start to see the corona as a diamond ring shows up along with Bailey's beads. These are things called shadow bands caused by refraction with the Earth's atmosphere. They are quite subtle and appear across the ground, not unlike what you see in a swimming pool. As you can see, by the way, when my wife found out that there were diamond rings and beads, she became very interested in astronomy. You can see the shadow bands on the surface of that paper right there, and that there are many aspects of the sun which are invisible to us because of the great brightness of the photosphere itself. Only during a solar eclipse will you be able to see the atmosphere of the sun, which is called the corona. We are also unable to see the prominences, which also known as solar flares. We also miss out on the chromosphere. We will discuss these aspects shortly. Because of the difference in the brightness of the chromosphere, prominences, and corona, a camera cannot do them justice. We are fortunate to have eyes that can see the entire range of the visual spectrum all at once. Therefore, you can see lots of pictures of solar eclipses and never get an inkling of how spectacular the naked eye view actually is. The total solar eclipse is a naked eye event since the corona is no brighter, as said, than the full moon. Should you decide to watch totality with solar glasses in place, you will miss the event, as I said. Here is the dynamic of a total solar eclipse. First, the shadow of the moon is racing across the Earth at about 1,500 miles per hour. The effect is stunning. As the sun disappears, shadow bands appear on the ground, as we showed in the prior example. Next, Bailey's beads appear at the rim of the moon, named for the astronomer named Bailey. They are the sun's light passing through the mountains of the moon. The final happening prior to totality is known as the diamond ring effect, which is a vestige of the photosphere appearing through the uneven terrain of the moon. And again, like I said, my wife thought with the beads and diamond rings was a great idea. Next, you can see, by the way, you can see also the prominences. That's that little red thing at the bottom there. You can see that. I don't know whether this is doing what it's supposed to be doing. It's not. Okay, we're okay. Next, the corona can only be seen during an eclipse. Let me do this. There we go. Okay. The corona can only be seen during an eclipse since it is millions of times less bright than the surface of the sun and starts to become visible and the last vestiges of the sun's surface. You can see polar brushes. The temperature of the corona is upward to 1.5 million degrees Fahrenheit. Interesting enough, the surface is only about 9,000 degrees Fahrenheit. The corona is produced obviously from the interior of the sun. The corona can stretch 10 to 15 solar dynamics, and its solar maximum it is even more spectacular. The sun goes through 11-year cycles of activity. Right now, we are moving through a high point in the sun's activity. And what you can also tell at that point in time is you can see a lot more of the sunspots that occur during that as well. Concurrently, the lower atmosphere of the sun is called the chromosphere, lights up with a brilliant reddish-orange color, and it is the inner atmosphere, again, only visible during a total solar eclipse. The very red prominences appear, which are flares jumping for the sun's surface. They are huge flares. This photo is altered somewhat, but your naked eye sees both the prominences and the corona at the same time. But you can only see a small bit of the corona, but there's kind of gives you a little bit of an idea. And most of the time, if you want to get this, you better be able to put your stuff on detail it and combine the pictures and such. The stars and planets appear. Here is a comparative size of the particularly large one and the Earth. Let me do that for you. And that's the Earth size in comparison to the Earth. Pretty impressive. Everything you know is on that little globe over there. The stars and the planets appear, and the temperature, which has been dropping steadily as the sun has been covered, suddenly plummets. The overall effect, as I said, is stunning. As totality ends, the reverse effect occurs, the chromosphere appears, the diamond ring appears, Bailey's beads show again, and the corona fades away. One can remove their solar glasses or solar cover from their telescope and binoculars when the corona appears. Actually, diamond ring effect is so short, it is certainly safe to look at as well, and I suggest that. Let's start with the many definitions of the many aspects of viewing an eclipse. The corona. The corona is the outermost layer of the solar atmosphere. It is made of tenuous ionized gas called plasma, with temperatures up to many millions of degrees Fahrenheit. The prominences are structures in the corona consisting of cool plasma supported by magnetic fields. Prominences seen on the disk are also known as filaments. Polar plumes are bright structures of outflowing gas which occur along the magnetic field lines in coronal holes. Helmet streamers are large cap-like structures with pointed peaks which usually overlie the sunspots and active regions. Coronal loops are found around sunspots and in active regions. These structures are associated with the closed magnetic field lines that connect magnetic regions on the solar surface. By the way, you can view partial glass phases with sunglasses only you will need 13 pair. Through the years, it has been erroneously reported that it is the ultraviolet and infrared sun produces that is dangerous. In fact, injury is primarily due to short wavelength visible light. It is the brightness that causes the damage. By the way, another thing that you might want to get me interested in is we had some here, and going relatively south, we had northern lights, which is the aurora. That aurora is caused by storms on the sun, magnetic storms that crash into our magnetic field and scatter the light. And you get to see these very interesting things. I don't know how many of you have seen them, but they are pretty spectacular, red and green and all kinds of other colors. Very, very interesting stuff. Here is a total eclipse, first from a naked eye viewpoint and second telescopically. Watch now this visible video and how it appears first from the ground and then with the telescope. You can see what's going on there. Now, this is a relatively long one. I'm going to swing along it. The shadow is 70 miles wide in this one. Maximum is 166 wide for a long duration eclipse. The longest duration totality will be produced at 7 minutes and 29 seconds. That one is going to occur actually on July the 16th, 2186. Theoretically, the longest totality is 7 minutes and 32 seconds. The last one nearly that long was on June 5th, 744 BCE. There will be a total eclipse on July the 16th, again, 2136, which will be the longest total solar eclipse for thousands of years. The eclipse will pass over the South Galapagos Islands, with a total eclipse of 4 minutes occurring over the southern tip of Espanola Island, the northern tip of Ecuador, with a total eclipse of 3 minutes and 26 seconds on island Santa Rosa, central Colombia, 4 minutes and 50 seconds over Bogota, central Venezuela and northern Guyana at 7 minutes and 4 seconds. The shortest totality will occur on February the 3rd, 1919. It was 4 seconds long. And by the way, when I was in India, there was a 47-second totality. The umbral shadow of the Earth averages 855,000 miles in length, while the moon is 255,000 miles long. That is why total lunar totality is so much longer than solar totality. The total solar eclipse reoccurs at a specific location every 375 years. In the northern hemisphere, that frequency is about once every 330 years. In the southern hemisphere, it averages about 540. You can see now as totality occurs. Pretty nifty. Sun disk therefore appears smaller, and thus the moon is more likely to appear larger than the sun. Simply, observers north of the equator have more opportunity to see solar eclipses. Pretty nifty, huh? Delaware is the state which last time experienced totality in July 29th of 1478. If you are waiting for it to return, you will have to wait until October the 26th, 2144. As far as District of Columbia, next totality will be September the 12th, 2444. Hardly can wait, can you? So you can see that this eclipse was a couple minutes long. And you can see the corona around it. And look at the shadow that's shaping underneath. It's a sphere, as you can see, the arcing. And as you see, as the right side starts to come up, totality is about to end. We'll take this right through it. I think that's worthwhile.
30 seconds.
Look at the horizon.
Oh,
That voice that's giving the timing, that's Fred Espenak's voice.
look how bright it's getting. Look at the shape of the shadow cone.
See, as the shadow is moving off, and this is where he said that it was, Aristotle was saying that this also shows the roundness.
Here it comes. Speeds, barely speeds.
Pretty nifty, huh? Let's move it along a little bit along here. This is what it looks like during the eclipse is going. You can see, oh, I didn't want to do that. Sorry about that. Let me go back here 1 second. Let's do that again. Okay, I'm going to take this forward a bit so you get an idea of what we're talking about. You can see it as we're just moving through it. This is how the eclipse is covering the sun, as you can see. And now we take off the filter so that we can see the diamond ring effect and obviously the corona. And this is stopped down, and when we stop it up a little bit, there you go, you get the full thing. And then, of course, as it ends, there's the same diamond ring effect occurring, and then it goes off the sun just like that. So that kind of gives you an idea of how that works. Okay, let me move along here. All right, why do eclipses occur? The moon is 2,160 miles or 3,500 kilometers in diameter. The sun is 864,000 miles or 1.4 million kilometers in diameter. The sun, therefore, is 400 times the diameter of the moon. The moon is 220,000 miles away from us, or 354,000 kilometers distance when it is closest, which is known as perigee, and 260,000 miles or 420,000 kilometers distance from the Earth at its farthest, or apogee. The sun varies its distance from the Earth from 91 million miles to 94 million miles. Thus, the sun is about 400 times farther from us, as the moon has said. Hence, to our eyes, the apparent size of the sun and the moon are the same. How often do eclipses occur? Why not twice a month? Well, in order for the eclipses to occur, the sun, the moon, and the Earth need to line up, and the moon's orbital plane is tilted about 5 degrees relative to the Earth's solar orbital plane. Hence, the moon is usually somewhere above or below that plane. In order for the eclipse to occur, two things must happen. First, it either has to be crossing the plane at the ascending or descending node, and second, it either has to directly be between the sun and the Earth in case of a solar eclipse, and the Earth has to be between the sun and the moon in the lunar eclipse. There are as many as 7 eclipses in 1 year. There are always at least 2 solar eclipses, and 5 is the maximum. There can be as many as 3 lunar eclipses, but there can be years where there are none. So an understanding that has more to do with the size of the objects than otherwise. So you can see there's a total eclipse on the left. On the middle, you see the annular eclipse, and then you see a lunar eclipse on the right. And now we go to the thing called Saros. This is an interesting word that was used, called a cycle, Saros cycle, and it was used by the early Chaldeans in ancient Babylon. All eclipses, lunar and solar, follow a sequence. Each eclipse is repeated 18 years and 10 or 11 days later, 1/3 around the Earth. Each series of Saros moves northerly or southerly along the Earth each time it occurs. This is called progression, and eventually move off the Earth completely. Generally, there are about 70 eclipses in a Saros. Saros cycle, known as the Saros cycle is known to the early Chaldeans. The earliest record of a solar eclipse was, why am I saying that? The earliest was on October the 22nd, 2134 BCE. 11,898 solar eclipses have or will occur in the period between 2000 BC and 3000 AD. 26% of them will be total, 33% will be annular, 35% will be partial, and 5% will be hybrid. Edmund Halley, let me see if I can do this here quickly. There he is. Edmund Halley calls eclipses cycle Saros in 1691. Although erroneous in use of his words, it's stuck. There are a maximum of 2 and a maximum of 5 solar eclipses each year, like said, and between 2000 BC and 3000 AD, 3,625 years contain 2 solar eclipses, 877 contain 3, 473 contain 4, and 25 contain 5. 1935 had 5, and 2206 will be the next to have 5. All right. What is probably the most famous eclipse of ancient times ended a 5-year war between the Lydians and the Medes. These two Middle Eastern armies were locked in battle when the day turned to night. The site of this total solar eclipse, the date is fixed at May 28th, 585 BCE, was startling enough to cause both nations to stop fighting at once. They agreed to a peace treaty and cemented a bond with a double marriage. The eclipse was predicted by Thales of Miletus, and a celebrated Greek astronomer and philosopher, but prediction was probably not known to the warring nations. The earliest record of a solar eclipse comes from ancient China. The date of this eclipse, usually given as October the 22nd, 2134 BC, is not certain. Historians have known the account was written somewhere within a period of about 200 years. During that time, there were several total eclipses visible in China. In 2134 BC, as said, the eclipse is simply the best guess. The ancient Chinese document Shu Cheng records that quote, the sun and moon did not meet harmoniously. The story goes that the two royal astronomers, Hsi, H-S-I, and Ho, H-O, had neglected their duties and failed to predict the event. Widespread Oriental belief held that the eclipse was caused by an invisible dragon devouring the sun. Great noise and commotion, drummers drumming, archers shooting arrows into the sky, and the like, were customarily produced to frighten away the dragon and restore daylight. When the eclipse took place, the emperor was caught unprepared. Even though the sun returned, the angry ruler ordered his astronomers beheaded. The eclipse of Abraham in Canaan in 1533 BCE, eclipses are also mentioned in the sacred books as the Bible. One of the best known references to eclipses appears in the book of Genesis, which involves the journey of Abraham into Canaan. And when the sun was going down, great darkness fell upon us. He said, it is possible to relate this description with a computed solar eclipse occurring in on May 9th, 1533 BCE. The homecoming of Odysseus. There are some evidence to suggest that Odysseus, from Homer's Odyssey, could have returned to his Penelope on the day of an eclipse. Recently, astronomical references led two scientists to state that the solar eclipse of 1178 coincided with the homecoming of Odysseus to rejoin Penelope after the Trojan War. In the Old Testament eclipse of 763 BCE, one passage in the Bible says that on that day, says the Lord God, quote, I will make the sun go down at noon and darken the earth in broad daylight, end of quote. The corresponding eclipse could have occurred on June 15th, 763 BCE. There is also the Chilicus eclipse of 648 BCE. It is believed that the Greek lyric poet Archilochus saw a total solar eclipse, which happened on April the 6th, 648 BCE. Quote, Zeus, father of the Olympians, made night from midday, hiding the light of the shining sun. and sole fear became upon men. In 1845, Hippolyte Fizeau and Leon Foucault did photograph it, but failed to get a discernible image of the sun's outer atmosphere. The first useful photo of a total eclipse was taken on July 28, 1851. The earliest scientifically useful photograph of a total eclipse was made by Julius Berkowitz at the Royal Observatory in Königsberg, Prussia. And that was on, again, July 28th, 1851. One of the most important eclipses in history happened in 1919. This particular eclipse cut a path across South America and the Atlantic Ocean and landed on the west coast of Africa. Waiting on the island of Principe was a team of astronomers armed with telescopes and cameras. This group was led by the famous English physicist Sir Arthur Eddington. Albert Einstein had published his groundbreaking paper on general relativity in 1915. One prediction made was that the theory was the bending of light in a strong gravitational field. This is called gravitational lensing. By 1917, the Astronomer Royal of England, Sir Frank Watson, realized that a total solar eclipse could provide a perfect experiment to observe gravitational lensing and then test the viability of relativity. The long duration of the May 29, 1919 eclipse, with Ceres 136, some 6 minutes in totality, was the ideal candidate. Since World War I had ended, travel was much eased. The sun was to be in the constellation of Taurus, near the famous Hyades cluster. Prior to the excursion, Eddington took photographs of the cluster and made exact measurements of each star's position. In May, with his crew, Eddington arrived on Principe and set up camp. During the eclipse, the astronomers worked frantically to photograph the stars nearest to the sun. While with valuable exposures in hand, Eddington sailed home to England and measured and compared the star images on the two sets of glass plates. The precise measurement of the stars, especially Kappa Tauri, revealed a defiant deflection from their true position, thus proving to be true the one important component of relativity, gravitational lensing. Einstein became an overnight celebrity. Now, the eclipse that we've experienced last in the United States was the eclipse of 8/21/17. Let us discuss the occurrence of the eclipse, which crossed the continental United States on August the 21st, 2017. This event was the first total solar eclipse observed in the continental United States since 1979. It stretched across the country from Oregon to South Carolina. In order to see totality, you had to be on that path that's marked on the map. You can see the eclipse anywhere in the United States, but only along this path did you observe totality. And I was sitting out there in Casper, Wyoming. You can see it. It's right up on, there's a red little line over there up around that area. The next major eclipse that's going to go across the United States is, by the way, this is how the eclipse occurred in 2017. Let's go over this one still a little bit more because this is kind of an interesting thing. The eclipse started in Oregon, moved across Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, Nebraska, Kansas, Missouri, Iowa, Illinois, Idaho, I thought was the first one, Illinois, Kentucky, Tennessee, Georgia, North Carolina, and South Carolina. In order to get the longest and best view, it was best to be on the center line of any eclipse, obviously, and totality was at its maximum 2 minutes and 40 seconds near Carbondale, Illinois. But along the center line, would be as short as 2 minutes long, and that when it touched the coast of Oregon, but was still 2 minutes and 30 seconds long when it leaves the coast of, when it left South Carolina. Obviously, the most important issue is to be where the weather is clear enough to see the sun. Again, this is what's going to happen in 2024, by the way. What you have to do is to drive along the eclipse path in order to catch up to areas of minimal clouds. recommendation was always to sleep in your car and drive to where the prospects look good for weather the day before. As far as accommodations are concerned, always plan for them to be very expensive and scant availability. You may consider the option of reserving a hotel room somewhere along the path and driving to the path the day before, understanding that the length of the eclipses is shorter when you are not on the center line. Most important thing is to see the event, even if it is as long as on the center line. 25 seconds of solar eclipse is better than none. I have seen 15 total solar eclipses. I also went to see 2 others that were clouded out. I have seen 5 annular eclipses, numerous partial solar eclipses, and at least 12.5 lunar eclipses. Also the 2 transits of Venus and 6 transits of Mercury. None of these other events compares to the experience of a total solar eclipse. It is the bucket list item without question. Total solar eclipses occur every year somewhere on the Earth. If you miss this one, you can see another one, but you'll have to travel a greater distance to observe it and out of the United States. Again, the one that's coming up in 2024 will be actually close to Detroit, for example, but it is April, and that doesn't bode well for the weather. A longtime friend of mine came to me after seeing his first eclipse and said these words: "You have been telling me about how spectacular eclipses are for many years. After seeing this one, I have to admit I had no idea." Once again, the first question one asks after seeing a total eclipse for the first time is, when is the next one? Now, this total eclipse is coming up. That will be on Monday, April the 8th, 2024, visible across North America and Central America. A solar eclipse occurs when the moon passes between the Earth and Sun, as we know, thereby totality and partially obscuring the image of the Sun for a viewer on Earth. A total solar eclipse occurs when the moon's apparent diameter is larger than the sun's, blocking all direct sunlight, turning day into darkness. Totality occurs in a narrow path across the Earth's surface, with the partial solar eclipse visible over a surrounding region thousands of kilometers or miles wide, with a magnitude of 1.0566. It's the longest duration of totality will be 4 minutes and 28 seconds near the town of Nazas, Durango, Mexico, and the nearby city of Torreon, Coahuila. Again, that's the one that's coming up. And you can see that on this picture, you can see there's a star in the middle. That is the greatest time total that you get during that eclipse. And again, that would be the totality of 4 minutes and 28 seconds. That is an awfully long eclipse. And you can see this one going just as we showed the other one. Pretty cool, huh? All right, we aren't the only planet that gets to see eclipses. Even on Mars. Phobos, the larger of the 2 moons of Mars, about 10 miles in diameter approximately, is observed passing in front of the sun by the lander Curiosity. Again, they don't get totality. And there it is. I have a friend by the name of Benson Barr who wrote about an eclipse in August the 31st, 1932. And he had a nice, he was a dentist and a really nifty fellow. Benson is a very close friend of mine, and he is, and I speak with him quite often. He graduated from the same school I graduated a year after I did, and we get together for eclipses every 10 years and combine the two. And you can see more about the 1932 eclipse. You can see the Ceres, it's Ceres 124, and there you go. And there you have some pictures of it as well. So there's been a lot of studies about this along the way. And This is a very, very fine picture by a fellow by the name of Bob Slobins, who I've traveled to several places. And with that, that is our presentation on syzygy. And I hope that you enjoyed it. And if you have any questions, I'm certainly open for that.
Hello, Asaf, do you have some questions to pass on? I didn't see very many.
Yeah, there's one question in the chat.
Okay, let me see the chat.
Yeah, someone asked, are the lunar and solar eclipse syzygy since they have the sun, moon, and earth all lined up?
So are they, I can't remember how to pronounce it. Are they examples? And that's why you're talking about them, because they Eclipses.
Right. It's
Syzygy? No, that's not the correct pronunciation.
syzygy.
Syzygy. I've learned it many times and I keep forgetting.
I have it on my license plate, believe it or not.
Well, that's your email address too.
That's right. Anyway, yeah, all eclipses and all occurrences of occultations and transits all make things line up. Now, give you an interesting thing tonight. Actually, go outside. You'll see the planets will not be lined up straight at us, but be lined up along the ecliptic. A lot of people make a whole lot of fuss about that, but in fact, they're always on the ecliptic, so they're always lined up. It's just where they are in the sky. It is now. That's considered a syzygy because it's 3 or more objects lined up. That's what it is, and that would be considered a syzygy. But again, putting yourself, but that isn't like as dynamic as even the moon going in front of Mars. Or the other night we had, I don't know whether anybody got to see it, but you had Venus and Jupiter very close to each other. They were in conjunction, as they're called. They're right together, and it was very interesting to look at that. But again, that's not a syzygy, but it could be if you wanted to put another planet on the 3rd place. But we're not part of that syzygy because we weren't lined up with them. All right, so you're looking at them that way. Again, you have to really, I always tell people you have to look up. The sky is extremely interesting. We have things like, we have actually something like 40 some odd, let me take care of that. We have something like 40, I think the number is 40. We have 40 meteor showers a year. Now, there's only a couple of really big ones, okay? Like, for instance, the Perseids in August and the Geminids in December are very, very neat because they have a lot of matter going through in very frequently. You can actually have a meteor storm where you can have 1,000 in an hour or something like that. But like, for instance, the Perseids are generally about 60 an hour and the Geminids are about 50. Now, what are we doing here? Why do those things occur? Well, they concern because of a thing called comets. What happens is comets break up. And what they do is they break up on a path that they follow around. And when the Earth goes through the path, you get a meteor shower because it's just junk. It could be little pieces of ice or anything like that. They burn up in the Earth's atmosphere, and there you get a meteor shower. Those are things that happen all the time. Occasionally, you'll get to see a meteor going across the sky, or you get to see a comet. A comet is just an object in space that goes around the sun. These comets go around the sun. They come in from way out, like the Oort cloud is what it's called. They come all the way in and call it, like, for example, Halley's Comet. It's actually Halley's Comet, but Halley's Comet comes by every 76 years, all right? It has a path that goes around. Take a look at the planets. How long does it take us to go around the sun? It takes us 365 days. It takes the comet 76 years. It takes Mars 2 years. It takes Jupiter 12. It takes Saturn 27 years. Pluto takes 248 years to get around the sun. So you have to understand that you'll get times when the things will line up because they're all on the ecliptic. And that's what happens. And when you get the lineup, you'll get an occultation, you'll get a transit, you'll get an eclipse. There you go. Any other questions on that? Go ahead.
There's no more questions.
No, that same question was asked a couple of times.
Mhm.
Does anyone else have a question? If you would like to ask it directly, you can raise your hand, go down to reactions and raise your hand, and I can unmute you.
Well, that just tells me I was complete.
Yes. Sue S. did say that that she would go to Detroit and take her chances in 2024, but it won't be totality here. It'll be closer
want
than
to go
it
to
was in
Detroit.
2017.
You want to go to Cleveland.
Right.
That is right on the center line of the path. Right on the center line. You can go to Toledo and you'll not be on the center line, but you'll be in the eclipse path. You just won't have as long an eclipse, but it's a 4-minute eclipse. So even in Toledo, it's going to be a couple of probably 3 minutes anyway. So that's what you want to do. My recommendation to you, if you have interested in eclipses, that's what you want to do. Make a plan, even to just go to Cleveland and take your shot. All right. If you want to go a little farther south on the globe, you have a little better chance in April than you do up here. But just a little better chance. I don't know. You can go right to that place in Mexico. That's where Espinac's going. Go to the place in Mexico, and you could miss it. I went to the Faroe Islands that are north of England a couple of years ago, and we got there, and it was beautiful every moment until the eclipse came, and then it was completely clouded out. I went to another eclipse in South Africa, which I also was clouded out of during, but I also went to one in South Africa where the eclipse was magnificent. Absolutely magnificent. I've been to Bolivia. I've been to Turkey. I've been to Iraq. I've been all over the world seeing eclipses, and it's a special event.
Ed Pink asked how many you've seen, and I know you've said it before. But...
I've seen 14 total solar eclipses, and one that was almost totally eclipsed. All right, it was a partial, and I almost consider it. I've seen 5 annular eclipses. That's when the moon is too far away to cover the sun. I have seen both transits in our lifetime of Venus, 2004 and 2012. I went to Greece in 2004. I went to Kitt Peak Observatory in Arizona in 2012. Magnificent. I have seen 6 transits of Mercury. There are still several coming up in the next couple of years. And lunar eclipses, it may be 20, something like that. And we just had one this last year that was really beautiful. And we have another one coming up this year too. So,
someone asked, is there a clear view of the Northern Lights from Upper Michigan?
absolutely, that's where you want to go. We get them down here very, very rarely. But if you get to the Upper Peninsula, for example, you will see them. What you want to do is, if we have a solar mass ejection, which is relatively infrequent, but if we get one, you'll know probably 3 days in advance, because the results of the magnetic field getting disturbed takes about 2 to 3 days, to get here, and it'll lighten up that thing. And if the clouds are you see this magnificent display of reds and greens and blues, and fabulous. As a matter of fact, you still probably could see, if you find a good western horizon. Right now, we're still in a little bit of activity. It's a possibility you could pick it up in southern Michigan as well. I always tell people I can answer any question about astronomy, and not necessarily right, but you're not going to know the difference many times when I talk to people. It's just a joke. But any questions that you have at any time, you can get my email address from me at any time. You can ask me any question anytime you'd like. And my email is syzygy with an IE instead of a Y. My initials KB at gmail.com. So it's syzygiekb@gmail.com. And send me an email anytime you'd like, and I'd be very happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Ken. I really appreciate it. This will be on our YouTube channel. We have a special channel just for the astronomy programs. I put it in the chat. We try to have these programs every month. It doesn't always work, but that's the plan. and it's usually on the fourth Tuesday of the month. We sometimes make it other days if someone is not available on that day and has a presentation that we would like to see. If you want to get in touch with me at jdye@detroitpubliclibrary.org, you're welcome to. I do keep a mailing list. Unfortunately, I was late getting the information out this month, but I try to let people know enough ahead of time to make plans. But the recordings are available on our YouTube channel. And thank you very much, Ken, and thank you for your help, Asaf.
Thank you for
Appreciate it.
having me. I appreciate it really a lot.
So thank you. Goodbye.
I know.
All right. Sue is going to keep looking for the Northern Lights because she's in the UP now.
You want to do it, you're going to get a chance to see them. Make sure that you look in the west. That's the best place to see them. Okay? That's what you want to do.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you everyone for coming, and I hope to see you next month.
Take care. Bye-bye now.
Bye.